stuff.
I'm Kerry. I'm a freelance EA, just under a year. I was a PA EA for about 10 years. But I'm also a director of a community interest company, which is soon to become a charity. And I'm a yoga teacher as well. So busy.
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm the EA to the CEO of GHD. I have been an EA for about, I think, 15 or more, I can't remember because I'm so old, years. And I also have my own side business as a PA coach and mentor and trainer, and I specialise in working with other EAs and PAs.
And I'm Jess. I was an EA for about 10 years before starting a website that some of you may or may not have heard of called The Assistant Room. So I describe my career as a sort of lifestyle choice when I was an EA. So it's a lifestyle platform. So we talk about everything from the things that are relevant to you as a PA, such as private dining rooms in London and New York, all the way through to surviving your hangover at Christmas when there's a Christmas party every other day. So, yeah.
Thanks. And I should just say as well, so I was an EA for about 15 years working in the city, and I started Practically Perfect PA while I was also working as an EA. And then I became full-time with that about 2013. So I was doing the two for about 3 years before I was able to do Practically Perfect PA full-time. So I'm very much kind of in the side hustle zone as well. So why don't we start with a question for Kerry? And actually, I'd like all of you guys to answer it if you can, which is, I think, the very obvious first question, which is, can you just let us know a little bit more about what you do as an EA, and then a bit more information about what you do for your side hustle and what takes up the most time?
I started my my freelance EA career because I had an executive who I met for a coffee, and she had no ideas what to do with her life. She passed me this giant pile of posts and said, "What do I do with this?" And I said, "You could pay me hourly, and I can help you out with that." So I went on with her. I do the traditional EA stuff, so I help her with her life admin, appointments, all that normal stuff. With other freelance clients, it's a bit more project management and events management. That does take up. It's kind of sporadic, but it's like full days here and there. The charity that we're setting up is really in startup, so that's ad hoc, as and when. And teaching yoga, I do a couple of evenings a week to keep my hand in, because that's me, that's my lifestyle. That yoga underpins everything that I do. And I run retreats a couple of times a year. So what my week looks like, it's colour-coded, we were talking about before, is really sporadic and all over the place. But I enjoy that style of working.
Great, thank you. Abby?
Well, so my job is a regular 9 to 5, and I have always done regular 9 to 5. So I've worked in, that wasn't me, I've worked in lots of different industries and sectors, from arts to charity to finance, property, law, fashion, beauty, sort of now back in fashion, beauty, retail. So it's always been a 9 to 5. And what I found was I got quite bored of it. The 9 to 5 wasn't challenging me enough intellectually. It wasn't stimulating me. I absolutely can do an EA role, as most of us can, standing on our heads. It's not, once you've got into the groove of it, you know what you're doing. And I wanted something that was going to fulfill me. And yoga was never going to cut it for me, because I hate being upside down in complicated positions, and I hate team sports, so I wasn't ever going to do that. And so I needed something that was very much focused on the individual. And I'm also, ironically, an extreme introvert, so I'm not great in massive crowds or parties. They're my idea of a nightmare. But what I'm really good at is one-to-ones and having really good friendships with individuals, and I get on much better that way. So I'm also really interested in psychology, and that's part of what my degree background is in. So I wanted something that was going to let me have lots of quality time with individuals, understand them, make a difference to me, and make a difference to them. So being a trainer and a coach and a mentor was something that was definitely going to work for me. And I started off really kind of casually with just EAs who are coming to me with problems, and from that kind of built up a business, and now it's something I do pretty much weekly or daily, or it depends on the client. But that's where I get my satisfaction, and that's where it fulfills me having a 9 to 5 as well.
Amazing. Well, so the assistant room started out 3 years ago. We're actually turning 3 in a couple of weeks. So it started out 3 years ago. I was also working as an EA. And it was just me sort of writing blogs that I thought would be useful. I was writing them in my bedroom at the weekend or after work. And within 3 years, it's gone from that to us now having readers in over 15 different countries. Our main sort of areas and the areas that I concentrate on, we've got the online articles and the online content that are contributed to PAs and EAs around the world. And then we also have a lot of events. So my day is running content management, speaking to different PRs, networking with people around the world to produce that content. With regards to the events, we do lots of networking events in hotels and restaurants, again around the world. We're starting to do a lot more in New York, but London is our sort of primary focus at the minute. So I speak to a lot of different companies, PR teams, anyone who would like to basically introduce us as an industry to their clients or to a certain experience or initiative that they've got running to sort of help everybody in their corporate life. And then we also do a it's very confidential, but we have a small headhunting service as well. So I think that everyone in this room could agree to be able to hire an executive assistant or a personal assistant or anyone in a support role, you have to have done the job to know exactly what you're talking about, to understand the frustrations of the role, and to be able to get a good understanding that it's not just a competency-based match that needs to be made, it's also a personality match. And I think that we all have a very good insight into what makes a good EA or PA. So that's pretty much what takes up all of my time. We have roughly about 12,000 people in the network at the minute, so coordinating 12,000 majority women can be a fun experience. So yeah.
So what I wanted to ask, Kerry, if we start with you, so can you tell us, so you were an executive assistant, you now started being a freelance executive assistant, and with your side hustle, with the yoga and the charity, where was the passion? What was drawing you, where? Was the side hustle something that was, this is what I want to do with my life, the EA role pays the bills and keeps a roof over my head, or is it a mixture of the two?
I think it's definitely a mixture of the two. I qualified teaching yoga in 2015, and instantly I was like, that's what I want to do for a living. And then they're like, we'll pay you £15 an hour. You're like, that's not going to pay the bills. So, and I did get some really great jobs. I taught at the Sky Garden at 6:30 a.m. sunrise yoga. It's glorious, really well paid, wonderful people. Then I moved back to Manchester, where no one wants to go to a yoga studio. If it's not in your gym membership, they're not going to pay for it. So I got another EA role within a charity, and I'd only ever worked for corporates, and that's where everything changed. I really loved that job. So there's that, and when I unfortunately got let go from that job, and I had mortgage to pay, and I've been thinking about setting up freelance for a long time. For one reason or another, couldn't find the time, because who can? And I thought, now or never, I'm going to have to do it. So I used the skills I'd already got, because I knew they'd pay the bills, and I had that EA who needed someone there and then anyway. Good timing. And the yoga, really, my end goal is to be a complete hippie and go and live in the woods under a tree and build my own house. And that kind of, it grounds me in my day-to-day, but it also gives me that end focus.
Fantastic. And as you were just talking about skills, Abby, what skills do you find from the work that you do at JHD? How do they, and the EA roles that you've had, how do they help you keep the side hustle going and organised?
Well, I think what we're really good at as EAs and PAs is ultra organisation. So your own diary management, which it becomes so crucial to know where your free time is going. And I think logistics, you have to so I have some clients in really difficult places like Dubai, so I'm thinking about time difference when they're Skyping in or calling me. And I think also this sense of really grounded practicality, which a lot of us EAs and PAs have. We know what we can move and what we can't move, and sometimes things go wrong, and sometimes stuff breaks, and sometimes someone doesn't pay on time. That's really annoying, and you've got bills to pay, and as any small business owner knows. And you have to have, and you have to really sort of prep before you do your side hustle. You have to spend a year thinking about what you would do and how you would deliver it, who your client's going to be, what happens if you run out of money, how you're going to support yourself. You need to have 4 months worth of salary in the bank. You need to think about what happens if my client drops me, or I get a negative review, or actually I haven't helped someone, which is like your worst fear, because the whole point of it is you want to help someone. And I also had a conversation with my boss, when he hired me, was to say, by the way, obviously you're my world, you're the most important thing in my life, but on my life, I actually do this other thing, and occasionally I'm going to have to take annual leave, like today, in the morning to come and do a talk, or I'm going to have to, spend my lunch break preparing a presentation for a summit that I'm speaking at, and he was fine with that, but I actually had to have that conversation because I didn't want there to be some weird conflict of interest, or being hauled up in front of my PR department for not bringing GHD into disrepute or something. That'd be terrible.
Did you have that, Jess, when you started the assistant room? Because I know I did with Practically Perfect PA. I had to go in and have that conversation with my boss, and it was kind of like, well, what's not fulfilling you in this role? It was like, well, it's not actually about you. It's something that I want to do for me. Did you have that?
So, the last boss that I had as a PA, she was one of the most formidable women in the property sector. She was initially going to be on the first series of The Apprentice. She was absolutely fierce when it came to business. The way that she worked was that she would work on behalf of people buying houses, and she would take 20% commission on the money that she saved you. Now, I remember one of the last invoices that we sent out, that she'd saved a client enough money that her percentage was nearly £1 million. So you can imagine the kind of person she was. She was extremely strong, and I remember when I made the decision to do my own thing, because quite frankly I felt extremely unappreciated. I didn't feel as though she was a good example. I didn't feel as though there was going to be any kind of sort of growth that I could make in my own career. I had to tell her business partner first that I was going to be handing my notice in, because there was always a very clear definition between the two. He was able to be that sort of emotional, intelligent person between them both that ran the business. So I told him, and he said, do not tell her. I am going to hand your notice in for you. So he did that. The boardroom door opened. He came out, and he was white as a sheet, and he said, she wants to see you. So I went in, and I sat down, and she said, how do you expect to make money without me? And that was the moment that I thought, I basically didn't do anything you said that I should do in running a business. I survived when I first started on 1 month's salary for 4 months. I lived on poached eggs for an entire year, to a point that I'm now intolerant to eggs. But it was that single moment where I thought, I have no idea what I'm doing. I think I've got a sort of product. It's got a good, decent readership. I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to throw myself into it. If it doesn't work, I've spent 10 years as an EA. I know what I'm doing. I can go back to work. Like, this is a make or break situation, and I think whenever you start your own business, there's a certain element of, obviously, the planning, but it's that leap of faith that you have in yourself and that final bit of bravery that you have to make it work. So I had quite a sour sort of exit to the PA world, but I would not change it, and I learned a lot from her.
Yeah, it's bravery, no?
More so how not to treat people. She still follows me on Instagram. So
Stalks you.
yeah,
Instagram.
she's a wonderful lady. She is. She just has a very unique management style.
Can I ask the audience, how many of you have a side business or side hustle that you're doing at the moment? Oh, look at this. Ta-da! Okay.
Is that real time?
It's real time, yeah. So does anybody have any questions for any of our panel that we can ask? Anybody need any advice that they would like to ask about side hustle? Yeah.
I was just wondering, so if, say, I wanted to do a side hustle of anything, I think I'd struggle with motivation. Like I would be doing my full-time job, and then if something went wrong in the side hustle, I'd think, oh, like, I'll do that, I'll come back to that, and I just haven't done it. So I started a book, like about 3 years ago, I started writing a book, and I did all the chapters and did everything, and thought, this is brilliant. Did about 1,000 words, and then just never went back to it. So I just wondered, like, if you had any advice on, like, keeping your motivation up.
Sure, I'll start. It's a really good question. So the question is, how do you keep your motivation in your side hustle through the difficult times or just generally? I think the first most important thing is you've got to be passionate about the side hustle. Like you're really passionate about the assistant room, you clearly are all up in the yoga. You've got to be passionate. And if it's an interest but not a passion, you're going to have to make it more of a passion, because we all start lots of things and fail, and that's why we have things called, New Year's resolutions. So I think you have to reinvigorate yourself about the passion, about the interest. So what is it about writing you love? Why did you want to write a book? What's the story about? Who do you think would read it? Would you read it? Why did you lose your way? Is it simply because of time? Was it realistically, logistically, like you didn't schedule in, an hour a day, or is that too much? Or what if you went on a writer's retreat for a weekend? Or what if you started a book club or a writer's club, or you hung out with other creative people who inspired you or were passionate? Find something that is going to link you back to the passion. And then you've got to be dedicated. So I know that Jess spends so much time working on her side hustle, which is now basically her full-time business. And for me, it's a daily thing, and I absolutely plan and schedule my day in, and every minute and hour is accounted for because it has to be. Have you seen Mark Wahlberg's schedule for his day? It's insane. Starts like 3 o'clock with a workout, I don't know, something like this. And it's a horrific schedule, but the point is he's doing very, very well. So maybe that kind of tight scheduling and finding your passion, and then allowing yourself the time to do it, because it's really easy, I think, as EAs, PAs, we don't give ourselves time. We dedicate our lives to other people, and we don't look after ourselves. But if your book is the thing, then you need to give yourself the time.
So before I started the assistant room, I also had a business called Mappy Hour, which was a sort of on-the-go, real-time happy hour app for London. So if you were in Charing Cross, you could find out where the nearest Tooth One or Margaritas were. And I remember going, when I was working for Camilla, my schedule was sort of, I'd get in the office for 7:30, and then I would leave. I'd go for a walk around the block at 6 o'clock, and then I would stay until midnight, phoning bars, finding out what their happy hours were, and kind of putting that information into a piece of software that my boyfriend at the time had created. And it was really, really hard work. But I had somebody else that I could speak to and kind of discuss the issues that I was facing and to kind of air things out. Because I think when you start your own thing, you've got to remember sort of the people that we support at the very top, it gets really lonely. And you put yourself, regardless whether it's something full-time or it's your side hustle, you put yourself into that position without actually having the CEO title. So I think it's about having a group of people around you who genuinely want to support you and push you when you need that push. And it's also about knowing that if you get stuck, it's okay to take a step back. I mean, the amount of articles that the assistant room should produce is probably double the amount that it actually does. So my aim is always to get 3 articles out a week, but I automatically have put a huge pressure on myself to get that done. I mean, that's about 9 hours worth of work. So if I don't feel like writing one day, I won't. And I'll just, I'll say, right, I'm going to go to my favourite coffee shop this day and I'm going to start with a chocolate croissant or a giant macaroon, and I'm going to treat myself and get yourself into that mindset. So it's okay if it takes a little bit longer. It's a creative process, and you just have to go with the flow. There's no right or wrong, and it's your thing. So, you know, you should be very proud of that.
And if you do want any advice, there is a lady at the back called Christina who has got a whole story on this, having just published a book. So if you want to talk to Christina, I'm sure she'll give you some advice as well.
I've actually got a really good book recommendation for you, so I'll share that afterwards.
Can I help it? Just to come back to something that Jess just said, I do think having a network is a really good idea. It doesn't necessarily have to be people who are your friends, because your friends might say whatever they think you want to hear. So a network of, for me, so sometimes Jess and I have ideas and we'll talk about them, or I'll speak to another EA or PA, or I might go back to some of my older clients, or if I'm trying to get a client, I might say, you know, I have a network of people as well who are not EAs and PAs, but who are very good at what they do. So you want someone who's good at sales, you want someone who's good at promotion, you want someone who's naturally charming, you want people who have all those little key things, and you probably know them, but and most people are willing to help if you're explaining why, and someone, you know, who's also quite motivational. So whatever kind of person you personally find extremely dynamic and go-getting and motivational, and that kind of network within your grasp is very helpful, and they can hold you accountable. So if you say, okay, by the end of the month I'm going to have produced a chapter, we're all going to meet round, I will bring the wine, you will read my beautiful writing, you will tell me it's fabulous. There we go. And if by the end of the month you have not done that chapter, then they can say to you, where's the wine? Where's the beautiful chapter? What's going on? What's happening?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely a case of any time that I had during the working hours where I could write a blog or do a bit of technology stuff on the website, build a bit more of the website. That's what I tended to do. So lunch breaks, I was like, they're my hour. I'm going to use those to put towards Practically Perfect PA, which was a huge mind shift for me, because I never thought to myself, actually, lunch hour is your hour to go and do whatever you want to do. So I would like bring my laptop into the office during that lunch hour, go to Starbucks, work on the website and come back. And I found just doing that, actually using your working day also for the side hustle where you can, worked for me. But again, that meant sacrifices for me. So that was like not going out for a boozy lunch every night. Well, it's quite often for me, actually. But that kind of thing, and not going out of an evening, but sitting in my bedroom and in a shared house, because I was putting all of my money into Practically Perfect PA. So I'm sure it's not all roses for you guys. Have you found the sacrifices are there that come with running two things? Jessica?
So I said to these guys earlier, the best way, I said, can you please just double check that what I'm saying makes sense? How I see running a business, and please don't let this put you off, but has everyone seen Apocalypto? Has everyone seen Indiana Jones?
Started strong there.
Yeah. Well, don't beat around the bush. Where you've got these poor guys who are being sacrificed to a god in the sky, and then, you know, they get their heart ripped out and thrown down sort of 200 stairs. I know it sounds brutal. Obviously, that doesn't actually happen. But I think when you do start your own business, there is a huge amount of sacrifice that you go through, but it's a personal choice. I think if you're going to start a business and still think that you can do absolutely every single thing that you do right now, you probably should think a little bit more about whether or not it's definitely for you, because it does take commitment, and it is all about consistent commitment. So I think if you're the person being, you know, thrown down the steps, the god that you're worshipping is technically the brand that you're running. Everything comes before or comes after that brand. You have to prioritize everything that you need to make that a success. And the steps that you hit on the way down are all the obstacles and the issues that you face naturally going through business that actually you don't even know exist until you come up against those issues. So I think, as I said before, it's a creative process. There is absolutely no right or wrong way to go about it. My friends now have a Jess has arrived dance if I turn up to dinner or lunch, which they like to remind me all the time. Because if I get a client call that is, you know, worth a potential contract, or there's someone that I know is going to be able to, you know, have a really positive long-term effect on the assistant room, then I will say, girls, I'm sorry, I'm going to join you, you know, after starters at main course. And they all understand. I think the hardest thing that I found running a people-orientated business is that I soon realised not everyone is my friend, and that the more successful you become, the more people think that taking advantage of you is okay. They don't even realise they're taking advantage of you. But I remember I was on holiday, my first ever holiday for 4 years last year, and I had a PA who at the time I was very close with, and I hadn't spoken to her for about 2 months. She just started a new job, and she rang me and heard an international dial tone and then hung up straight away. And then I got a text message saying, "Hi babe, I know you're on holiday, but can you give me the contact for the person who runs the Ivy at Tower Bridge?" And at that moment, it sort of all clicked into place, and I thought, you know, my sort of priority is running a business. It's not about making friends. And it's a really hard realisation to come to. And we are fantastic friends, and Kerry, obviously, I'm sure we're going to do lots of things together going forward. But there's a very clear definition between business and sort of pleasure. And that, I think, for me, was my biggest sort of personal sacrifice, having to understand that there's a big differentiation between them both, and accepting it and actually just being okay with it.
And Kerry, just to bring you in, when it's with the yoga business, when it's like something that's so deep rooted in you that you do in your personal life, and it's your passion and it's something you have to do every day, making that into a business, is that easier or harder, do you find?
I think it can be quite difficult because you are so passionate about it. Lots of people don't get it. Oh, I want to work out. I don't want to come to your class and lie down. If you came to my class, they are a workout, but you get to lie down at the end. It's a bit both. Lots of people don't get it. Lots of people don't understand it. My own dad thought it was a bit of a flaky dream. And when I set up, I get the business cards like you do. And I was like, look. And when he left that day, he left the business card on the sofa. And I was like, but now I'm like, so it's going well. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know. It's all a bit awkward now. But I think sometimes getting people to believe that it's not just a flaky idea and you can do it, especially when you have just lost your job one day and you go home, you're like, actually, I'm going to set up on my own. And everyone goes, we haven't got 4 months in the bank and we haven't got any savings. And just finding that self-belief can be really hard. And especially when working for yourself. I teach yoga in the evenings, which means I can often be at home all day. I haven't got a lot of client work on, I can take the day off, it's great. But then my friends are all going to do something in the evening and I've got to teach yoga. I get to teach yoga, different attitude. And so again, that's a bit of a sacrifice as well, but it's got to be a sacrifice you want to make. And when people start making you feel bad about it, that's when you've just got to kind of say, thanks, but this is what I want to do.
I think that you're 100% right. People think you're mad when you give up work and a holiday allowance and a sick allowance, you know, you get your pension. They think you're totally bonkers when you want to go out and do something by yourself. And that's why I think that when you are thinking of doing your own thing, it is the creative process that you need to completely suss out yourself and not say to everybody, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Because you will get opinions that won't actually contribute constructively to anything that in the long term is going to make what your dream is become reality. So I always say when people say, you know, what's your advice in starting a business? If you want to do it, figure it all out and then take it to the people that support and love you and say, this is what I've got. I would really, really love you guys to get behind this. And then 9 times out of 10 they do. You do get the odd person. But most people are really impressed when you want to try and do something extra. And it seems a lot scarier than it is, but it's just taking that little step of bravery to kind of sort of jump off the cliff.
That's all we've got time for. If we can give a round of applause to our wonderful panel.